pay these guys?
Great cash, homie.
Leo the Lions, like now I go by the lineup. And if you can't make your mind up, I know you know where to find us. So don't go by blind luck, you should probably subscribe. Click play, kick back, chill, and watch the ROI.
And welcome. I am Leo. This is Leo the Lineup. This is going to be an NBA video for the slate that we have Tuesday night, January 5th. We have a 5-game slate this evening. Kevin Durant will miss the next few games due to COVID tracing. Should be a wonderful hot mess to try to figure out. However, if you are new, feel free to hit me with a subscribe. So am I. I'm a little over a month old. The channel, not me. A little over a month old, trying to put out as much content as I possibly can when it's relatively smaller NBA slates. If you are returning, you are a G. I appreciate you. You are the real one. Without further ado, let's get into it. Once again, I will be using Fanduel. I just like the visual and the layout better. Obviously, it's more just names on DraftKings until you click the player profile. Starting it off at the top, you have Kyrie Irving, obviously going to look like a great spot with Kevin Durant out. A lot of usage to be had. However, he is priced like Kevin Durant will be out, in my opinion. Pushing 10K. Certainly a good play, but I'm not going to force myself to get overexposed to Kyrie Irving. We all know his potential and what he can do, but pushing 10K makes it tough. I like Karis LeVert as a pivot, obviously, to gain a little bit more usage with Kevin Durant out, but obviously Kyrie Irving is going to look like a great play off first thought. Then you got Dame Lillard taking on the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls are pretty much riddled with COVID and COVID tracing and just need bodies at this point. Hopefully my dial-up internet is connected in the phone jack. Come on, Net Zero, let's go. All right, we loaded, folks. You got Damian Lillard's price tag at $9,200. Pretty fair on FanDuel. Not exactly sure on DraftKings. However, still breaking it down. Coming off two pretty decent games against Golden State Warriors and Steph Curry. The second of the two was obviously better. However, going up against the Chicago Bulls, they're riddled with COVID. They just need bodies at this point. Don't hate you if you want to play Damian Lillard. However, there are a few better plays, in my opinion, on this slate. Ja Morant, we know, is out for 3 to 5 weeks, going to be out for a while. Jamal Murray, coming off two pretty damn good games. I watched him torch my Minnesota Timberwolves. I believe it was 2 days ago. The rematch, obviously, tonight. Put up 51 against the Wolves. That was actually a game where the Timberwolves were leading, surprisingly, going into the fourth quarter, and then just got ran out of the gym in the fourth quarter. Ended up getting beat by like more than 20. Looked like it was a blowout all game. However, it was competitive, much more competitive than the box score and the scoreboard would indicate as far as 3 quarters go. Gotta love Jamal Murray coming in under 9K, off 2 good games, building some momentum after a slow start to his season. I'm assuming he's going to torch the Timberwolves again because that's just how they've been the last 3 games, and without Cat, they just seem to be lost. So, gotta love Jamal Murray. Mike Conley going up against Kyrie and the Brooklyn Nets. Had a pretty damn good start to his season. Kind of slowed down the last game against the Spurs. However, that price tag has increased significantly. I believe he was a higher 5K player. Now he's pushing 7K. That's naturally going to make me look elsewhere. I think there's better plays like DeJounte Murray. A guy you always want to see get higher than 30 minutes when he doesn't, and when they kind of are careful with him. He underperforms, obviously, as a lot of players do, just not getting the minutes. This last game against Utah was a relative blowout, so I'm going to assume he lost some minutes to that. They lost by over 20 points. The Lakers game was the interesting game. They had Derek White coming back. That was a guy who usually cut into the playing time or usage of DeJounte Murray. However, Derek White coming off of a foot injury, I believe. Now he broke a toe, so apparently he's going to miss some time. I have no issues about the minutes, and I have no issues of you playing DeJounte Murray. Going up against the Clippers, maybe he'll show out in LA again. Kobe White has to look good at $6,200, $800 cheaper than DeJounte Murray. Like I already mentioned, the Chicago Bulls just need players. They need production. Zach Levine has a 31.5% usage rate on the season. That's in the 100th percentile as far as combo guards. just to put it lightly. Obviously, I'm going to like Zach Levine. They just need people to put points on the board and to take usage and to just keep them in the game and to actually allow them to have a basketball team, because they got Lauri Markkanen out. They have Tomas Satoransky out. They have Ryan Arcidiacono out. So it's pretty dicey for the Chicago Bulls. You're going to naturally like Coby White coming in off a pretty decent couple of games. 6,200 is a super fair price tag for him. Usage to be had. Going up against Portland and Dame Lillard. I do like Coby White. However, I like Tyus Jones almost as much. However, there is fear with Tyus Jones. Obviously, playing a little bit more because Ja Morant has been out. He has had 2 good games the last 2 games. The reason I said there's fear with Tyus Jones is just because of DeAnthony Melton was finally available for the last game. I played him in a couple of lineups on that slate. I figured that maybe I'd be a little cute and sneaky and try to play the guy that nobody expected, who would outplay Tyus Jones right from the get-go. He was healthy, however, he didn't even get into the game. Still going to be a wild card for tonight, in my opinion, DeAnthony Melton. But gotta like Tyus Jones as far as this morning of the slate goes. Ricky Rubio has been far overpriced the entire season for his role and the playing time that he gets. He's not really getting over 30. It's more of like a mid-20s type guy. However, at 4,500 on Fanduel, finally cheap enough where you would want to take a risk on this guy. Like I said, mid-20s or under when they're getting blown out. Always going to be live to pop off. I feel like just being a Timberwolves fan and watching this team, things haven't been going well for them. He isn't afraid to certainly shoot. He shoots more than he did when he was originally with the Timberwolves, at least with this young team when they're struggling. So for my money, I'm going to put a few gambles on Ricky in a couple lineups for 4,500 just because this is the type of guy who can randomly go for a triple-double. I mean, if this game remains competitive and he's actually facilitating the offense with D'Angelo Russell and stuff, I mean, the stats could pile up. No problem taking a shot on a 5-game slate with slim pickings on Ricky Rubio at 4,500. Another of many guys who seemed like he was just feeding my Minnesota Timberwolves the other night was Monte Morris, coming in at 4,500, same price as Ricky Rubio. I probably even give Monte Morris the edge to Ricky Rubio just because it might be a little bit more sneaky. I think this guy can get a little extra playing time. Nonetheless, he's around 30 minutes as it is. Certainly a good value play on a 5-game slate when there's slim pickings, like I said. Usually on these smaller 4 or 5 game slates, it really is the value guy, which one pops off and kind of dictates the construction in your lineup after that. So Monte Morris is a under-the-radar play who's actually producing pretty decent in his last couple of games, point per minute wise. I wouldn't sleep on Monte Morris. If the Timberwolves start getting blown out, that's probably even better for him. But even if it's a competitive game, he still was getting run before the fourth quarter. I mean, like I said, the Timberwolves were leading going into the fourth quarter, so think that could be a sneaky little play. Lou Williams has been certainly underwhelming this year. You'd expect more. Even the games Kawhi sat out, besides the Timberwolves game, seems like everybody's fed them this year so far. Not really getting to Lou Williams. However, 4,000 Lou Williams is always going to be a wild card. Tomas Satoransky is out with COVID or COVID tracing. Patty Mills, like I said, you want to kind of find value on the shorter slate, just little extensions to make your lineups buildable and get the players that you want to prioritize. Not going to blow you away, however, he does have potential. 3,900, always going to be worth a roll of the dice on him. But you have Patrick Beverley with a little bit more playing time, I feel like, or an established role. 3,800, $100 cheaper than Patty Mills. Getting nearly 30 minutes in the last couple of games. However, he is pretty much a teenager, so consider that. And he's a goofy-looking, trash-talking bastard. But Nonetheless, Patrick Beverley is still a pretty decent basketball player. DeAnthony Melton could be a wild card, like I alluded to when I talked about Tyus Jones. He was finally available to return. However, he did not see the floor. I don't know if that was just to give him a little bit more time, or if that was because Tyus Jones has kind of decided to take that backup role to Ja Morant for himself. Alex Caruso is going to miss today, so that might bump up a few Lakers guards. Nothing crazy. He's not a huge part of their offense or usage per se. And that'll bring me into shooting guard. And surprisingly, if you were to say CJ McCollum would be ahead of all these guys, you'd probably be surprised. However, 8,900 for him. Warranted after the start of his season. Obviously, he's been balling, like I said when I mentioned Damian Lillard. However, I think there's a few better plays than that. Don't hate you if you are going to pay up for him. He's been killing it, and he's actually getting peripheral stats too. So, gotta like CJ McCollum. However, he's getting a little pricey, and a couple plays I think are better. Paul George, 8,800 against the San Antonio Spurs. He has actually been surprisingly pretty damn good this year. He's had a career-high 32% usage and a career-high 24.8 assist percentage. As you see in the stats, 25, nearly 6 and 5, getting you the peripheral stats you like and averaging a healthy amount of points. Like I said, dude's been balling, going under the radar. Everybody's sleeping on him probably because of the playoff P and the Paul George in the bubble and how bad he was when they got eliminated last year. Getting super pricey, so I'm going to temper my expectations and temper my exposures to him because the price tag is getting hefty, and you always worry about Kawhi Leonard being the top dog on that team. However, they're both eaten this year, and Paul George is certainly exceeding my expectations personally. Gotta like him. DeMar DeRozan coming in $400 cheaper. He's had a pretty damn good season himself, surprisingly. With LaMarcus Aldridge as a game-time decision, you want to keep your eyes and ears on that news. That's going to elevate players a little bit more, like Keldon Johnson. Maybe Rudy Gay gets a little more run, but DeMar DeRozan has been good for the Spurs. However, one of my favorite plays on the slate, in my opinion, is Zach Levine. 8,100. You're getting the discount to a couple of these shooting guards. Like I said, crazy high usage. The Bulls need players. They're missing like 3 to 4 players as is. You got guys like Thaddeus Young and Otto Porter being dependent on. Zach Levine's team, he's going to be able to do what he wants. Could be an exciting and fun matchup against Dame Lillard, CJ McCollum in Portland. They're going to need Zach Levine and Kobe White if they're going to keep this game competitive. I like Zach Levine personally, and I think that price tag looks great. Donovan Mitchell taking on Kyrie Irving and the Kevin Durant-less Brooklyn Nets. Slower start to the season, like I mentioned in previous videos. Price tag under 8K, always going to look appealing for Donovan Mitchell's ceiling and the type of player that he can be, like he was in the playoffs against the Nuggets. However, not really a priority to me on this slate, particularly if you're playing numerous lineups. Obviously, you're going to want to get some exposure to him just because he's a monster. D'Angelo Russell still at a fair price tag. It's like FanDuel's just daring you to play this guy. He's been underwhelming as far as watching the games, in my opinion, and being a Timberwolves fan. I was expecting a step forward, and without Cat, it's anything but a step forward. It's probably 2 steps back. They got off to the 2-0 start with wins over the Pistons and over the Utah Jazz in Utah, getting my hopes up, and then they got stomped by both the LA teams. However, he did pay off that price tag last game against Denver. Maybe he has a better game this rematch, and he's more efficient and can maybe hit a 50 piece, and that's certainly gonna pay off that price tag. However, if I'm gonna play a Minnesota Timberwolves shooting guard, I'm probably going to look towards Malik Beasley. He has a type of vengeance against the Nuggets for never letting him really crack their rotation and kind of giving him up for nothing, really. I was saying at the last game when they played a couple days ago, Malik Beasley is the type of player, is the type of a dog to have a little bit of extra motivation and hunger to ball out and to prove his old team wrong. So If I'm going shooting guard from the Timberwolves, I'm probably going Malik Beasley ahead of D'Angelo Russell, but D'Angelo Russell is the top guy on that team no matter what, so I'm always got to have that in mind. Dylan Brooks taking on the Los Angeles Lakers. We've seen this guy at like 6,700 last slate, so you got a price drop off with him, $600. Has been hot and cold, hot and cold. I think there's better players, obviously, to play on this slate. Shooting guard is going to be a viable position to pay down with guys like Karis LeVert, guys like Malik Beasley, like I already mentioned. Karis LeVert, that's a guy I really need to talk about because he actually has some pretty surprising stats. Even last game with Kevin Durant playing, he still pretty much paid off a $6K price tag, nearly 30 fantasy points against the Washington Wizards. However, Karis LeVert, surprisingly to me, has a 29.6% usage, which is in the 92 percentile as far as wing players go, and a 34.3 assist percentage, which is in the 96th percentile as far as wing players go. Only going to get better, only going to get the Mario Magic Mushroom growth to Kevin Durant being out. So at nearly 6K flat, that looks like one of my favorite plays on the slate, and it makes a perfect spot for if you don't go Zach Levine, maybe Malik Beasley, Dennis Schroeder, and obviously Karis LeVert looks fantastic. Dennis Schroeder, obviously playing pretty decent. You want a game towards 30 if you're going to get that type of price tag. Didn't get their last game against Memphis. However, he's been around there the whole entire season, so certainly don't hate that play at all. Jordan Clarkson is a guy coming off the bench for the Utah Jazz, going up against Kyrie and the Nets. Surprisingly, points per minute wise, he actually has been producing. It would be awesome if he could get 30 because he'd probably be putting up 40s. However, he's always going to be around 20 to 25 minutes and has a couple of top dogs in that offense. So take that with a grain of salt. If he gets a little more run or is just killing it, could be a good play at 5,300. You have Lonnie Walker, another guy who's getting around 20, 23 minutes, kind of a handful of type minutes. Not the greatest fantasy producer. However, he is going to get playing time, especially if there is more space opened up with LaMarcus Aldridge. They might have to change the rotations as far as that goes. TLC, got to see how he, what role he takes without Kevin Durant in the next couple of games. Guy who's getting around 20, 23. Don't hate that if he somehow starts or gets elevated playing time at nearly 44,000 flat. Looks great. And then you got some cheap guys, Gary Harris, Luke Kennard. Gary Harris, a guy who's usually just playing 35, 40 minutes and pretty much just running out there, playing 35 minutes and getting 13 points, 41 minutes and not even a half point per minute player. Obviously, you're going to be reaching for value on a 5-game slate because you're just trying to get different and set yourself aside from the pack and ahead of the pack as far as contests go. So don't hate Gary Harris, but it's obviously a gamble that you're probably going to lose. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is a game-time decision. That's important because it might bump up this guy who was turning heads in the preseason, Taylor Horton-Tucker. Turned heads in the preseason, finally seemed to crack their rotation. Maybe he stumbles into 23, 24, 25 minutes, especially with a blowout risk in that game. Could be a sneaky play, or maybe people are chasing him. I don't know. He might have established a semi-following after that preseason when he was balling. That'll take me, actually, P.J. Dozier's worth mentioning. Going up against the Timberwolves, 3,500. He's the minimum price on Fanduel. He is getting around 20 minutes. Not blowing you away, but definitely could be an under-the-radar minimum price player that sets you aside from the pack. Small forward. LeBron James on the year has a 35% usage percentage and nearly a 35% assist percentage. Always going to be a triple-double threat, a monster even at age 36. Good price tag as far as that goes. I mean, if he puts up a 55, 60, he's paying it off. Got to see if he's going to play for sure because obviously that's going to elevate Anthony Davis. And that just brings me to a point as far as position strength on FanDuel in particular. I know DraftKings you can get a little bit more flexible, but Position strength might just elevate Anthony Davis even more and make him more valuable and more of a priority, because you see the drop-off, 10,000 type player to a Bojan Bogdanovic. I mean, it doesn't get much more of a drop-off than that. Anthony Davis to Bojan, or Brandon Clark going up against Anthony Davis and Harrell. So just something to point out as far as position strength goes. I mean, you got Kawhi, you got LeBron, so if you wanted to choose one Laker, you could go Anthony Davis, and then you wouldn't want to play LeBron probably, so at least you have Kawhi in the small forward as another pay-up option. However, you probably wouldn't want to pay up there. I think you may want to consider paying up for Nikola Jokic at center, but just wanted to make that point as far as position strength on FanDuel, and sometimes that does naturally elevate people's worth and how valuable they are, because Anthony Davis could naturally get that boost today with that drop-off to these guys who are around half his price tag. So something to keep in mind. We got Kawhi Leonard taking on his former team in the San Antonio Spurs. Missed a couple games with a laceration in his mouth. Although Paul George has been surprisingly pretty damn good for the Clippers and killing it with his career high 32% usage, Kawhi himself has a 32.2% usage and 28.7 assist percentage, which are both in the 97 percentiles. So he's still going to be a super dependable pay-up option. Obviously, Kevin Durant out COVID protocol, Michael Porter Jr. out COVID protocol, going to elevate Will Barton, who played well against the Timberwolves in the first meeting a couple days ago. Now with the rematch, got a $400 price increase, still looks pretty good himself. Keldon Johnson is a guy to keep your eye on if LaMarcus Aldridge somehow can't go again with that knee soreness or issue that he has. Randomly been popping off. He's a younger player. Look at those averages. Those are pretty surprising if you don't know who Keldon Johnson is. Seems like he's taken the front seat as far as Rudy Gay's playing time, maybe taking the back seat to Keldon Johnson. However, they both should be elevated if Aldridge can't go. I'll bring up Rudy Gay real quick just to pair those guys up. If Aldridge is out, you got to like these guys. Probably take a shot on Rudy Gay just for the discount and maybe a little less ownership. People might be catching on to Keldon Johnson now finally, and he's getting a little pricey and nearly pushing towards 7K. Doesn't look preferable for a guy who was 4K, probably 5K to start the season. Kyle Anderson himself is getting not the cheapest price tag in the world, $6,300, and a team missing Ja Morant, the heart and soul of their team. Led the way a couple times, however, he's always viable to get you nothing but 20, and that $6,300, that's not paying it off in any way, shape, or form. Slightly mentioned Will Barton with the MPJ missing. Paid off against the Timberwolves in only 21 minutes. Didn't really have to play much in the fourth quarter because they were killing us. 29 points, 5,400, had a little increase. Only 20 minutes, but I would expect in a competitive game to be around 26, 27, 28 minutes. Has to look like a good play, but you got to like Otto Porter a little bit better, coming in $100 cheaper. In a team riddled by COVID, they need bodies. He's producing. Those averages look good. Normally has been a good fantasy basketball player. Has had a few injuries he has had to deal with that kind of slowed down that momentum. Seems like he's older than he is. However, he is still only 27 years old. Playing for the Chicago Bulls now, a team decimated by COVID. They need help. They need production. They need minutes to be eaten up. Otto Porter looks like one of the better plays on the slate at 5,300 in a paydown spot for small forwards. Rudy Gay, I already mentioned. Joe Ingles was absolutely dreadful, and maybe people still think that he was dreadful because he gave you a little bit of hope the last couple of games. Last game not paying off a $4,700 price tag, but 35 and 30 has the potential to be a sneaky difference maker, a low-owned type player who actually changes where you needed to go as far as small forward. Certainly risky as hell because he has potential to give you 13, 14, or even under that, but certainly worth a little consideration if you want to get different. Like I said, people are going to be chasing weirder plays, value plays, different plays to kind of get you different on a smaller slate. So leading me into Joe Harris, figures to get a usage bump with Kevin Durant out, maybe gets a few more minutes. Got to see how they run that rotation with Kyrie and Kevin Durant out. However, he looks like a great play at 4,600. He's actually been producing even with Kevin Durant in. So maybe, unless that negatively affects Joe Harris, he should be a super solid play at 4,600. Then you got a couple of wild cards. Jarrett Culver randomly will pop off for 30, but other than that, he's super underwhelming. Not a priority to me. Maybe and hopefully people are seeing this rematch with Denver and how he played against them in the first game. I'm hoping they chase that 34. I've watched this guy all last year and to begin this year, and I doubt that he has any consistency as far as that goes. Maybe he'll prove me wrong, but if I'm going for a small forward from the Wolves, similar to the shooting guard position, I'm going to go a little bit cheaper. As far as D'Angelo Russell to Malik Beasley, I'm going Jarrett Culver to Anthony Edwards. I think a guy with a higher ceiling. I've been screaming for them to just start this guy. You got Cat down. You lost 3 games by over 20 points. I mean, start the kid. Let's see what boost and what type of energy he can give us. However, they've kind of been a little bit patient with him. Certainly gives it his effort. I'm hoping he actually starts taking the ball to the hole rather than settling for 3-point jump shots like he has been. However, I think there is some untapped potential, obviously coming from Anthony Edwards. Patrick Williams at 4,300, another guy from the Bulls who need people to play for them so they can actually have a basketball team to go up against the Portland Trail Blazers. Came up off a 28.5-point game against Dallas. Maybe an under-the-radar type play. Everybody's going Otto Porter. Maybe you get sneaky and go a cheaper Chicago Bulls small forward at Patrick Williams. I'll be playing him because I'm playing many lineups. So Patrick Williams could be an under-the-radar rookie player who actually gets around 30 minutes and kind of surprises. Carmelo Anthony at 4,200. Gotta like that price tag for probably a Hall of Fame type player. Getting actually around 27, 30-ish type minutes going up against the Chicago Bulls. Hasn't been necessarily productive this year. However, always can take a shot on Melo at nearly a 4,000 price tag. Josh Okogie from my Minnesota Timberwolves dealing with a hamstring strain. They need his defense and his effort back. I doubt he comes back. They say he's questionable. Something to keep in mind, but I doubt he comes back. May be surprised, however. Prince might get elevated with the Kevin Durant absence. Hasn't been getting the most minutes in the world. Hopefully they give him a boost in confidence and give him maybe 5 to 10 more minutes. Wes Matthews can see a few more fantasy points fall his way if Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is out. Alex Caruso is already out, so could see a little more time with the ball maybe in his hands. Derrick Jones, obviously going to look like a great play, going up against the Bulls at 3,600. Didn't get the minutes last game, however, 30s and mid-30s all year long. Not the greatest fantasy basketball player in the world. However, he's going to be out there for probably a decent portion of this game. And at 3,600, you are not going to find many guys with the role that he has at that price tag. You have Denzel Valentine from the Chicago Bulls, maybe a little wild card. Seemed to have some potential a couple years ago coming out of Michigan State. However, they just haven't really been playing him very much, and he has surprisingly almost been a point-per-minute basketball player when he actually does get out there. Maybe they decide to give him a little bit more run, and he could break the slate, but not necessarily counting on it, but it's always something to keep in mind and a way to think outside the box on a smaller slate where you have to get a little bit weird. See if there's anybody else worth mentioning. Jake Layman, the Timberwolves have been playing him 22, 23, 24 minutes. Maybe he gets hot. 22 minutes last game, my bad. Around the teens. He has started a few games. Maybe he gets it going. They certainly need some help. We'll see what their we'll see what their starting lineup is. I know they shook it up last week. They took Naz Reid out of the starting lineup. They started Juancho, Hernan Gomez, and Ed Davis, who I'll probably mention when we get to centers. However, going to power forward, like I mentioned, you're going to see natural value in paying up for Anthony Davis, maybe just based off the position strength, going from Anthony Davis to Bojan Bogdanovic if LaMarcus Aldridge is out. However, Anthony Davis hasn't really been Anthony Davis this year. I mean, he hit 60 against San Antonio, but other than that, I mean, geez, can't pay $10K for that production. You figure it's a great matchup going up against Memphis. Just put up 44 against them, so we'll see how things shake out. Obviously going to get exposure to Anthony Davis. If somehow LeBron James were to miss this game, obviously you might want to lock in Anthony Davis at a weak position on Fanduel, and not the worst matchup in the world, obviously. Bojan Bogdanovic, a couple miserable games to start his season. However, he was in the winning lineup last time he played. Dropped 35. Kind of waiting for a little breakout game. However, look how scoring dependent the guy is. He's not getting much peripheral stats. 28 real points. Get you 35 fantasy points, getting you 1 rebound and only 3 assists. 33 fantasy points, coming off 23 real points, so can't really depend on him. It's either he's scoring 30 and blowing up the slate, or he's not getting you there because he's not filling the stats where it counts. So as far as peripherals go, Brandon Clark, 5,100. I believe he got a $300 price increase from last time. However, going up against Montrezl Harrell, Anthony Davis, and the Los Angeles Lakers, I'm not necessarily liking his matchup. Plus, he naturally has to fight for rebounds with Jonas Valanciunas. So obviously, in my opinion, there's going to be better pay down options for power forward, especially when you got guys like Robert Covington going up against the Bulls, going to play 30 minutes, high effort 3-and-D guy, can get you some steals, rebounds, just energy, effort. 5K certainly can pay off that price tag, and has the potential to blow it out of the water. Naz Reid, like I mentioned, the Timberwolves shook up their starting 5. Naz Reid was coming off the bench. They had Ed Reed starting. They had Juancho, Hernan Gomez starting for Jake Layman. Mid-20s minutes. Maybe he sees himself back in the starting lineup. They might go Ed Davis to try to get somebody who can maybe attempt to cover Nikola Jokic, because Naz Reid has been kind of lackluster as far as defense effort wise since Cat's been out. However, at 4,800, he has been a good fantasy basketball player and a points per minute player. Naz Reid always going to be viable. Royce O'Neill was a guy I was loving when he was 3,800 on FanDuel. He has a $700 price increase. However, he's getting a ton of minutes. He's going up against a younger, athletic Brooklyn Nets team. Now they don't have Kevin Durant. They got Kyrie. Not the youngest guy in the world, but guys like Karis LeVert, Jarrett Allen. Could be an athletic run around style type of game that kind of feeds into what he likes. Maybe getting some pointless steals, and always viable. However, I liked him a lot more when he was 3,800. Paul Millsap had a pretty decent real basketball game just off the eye test as far as playing the Timberwolves. Not the greatest fantasy output in that game, but if it's more competitive, maybe he sees 5 to 6, 7 more minutes. JaMychal Green played a lot and fed the Timberwolves quite a few himself, so that's a guy I'll be talking about. But Nick Batum coming in at 4,400 for the Clippers. Relatively around 20-ish type points. Could be an extension player, a cheaper pay down spot for power forward if you don't want to go to Rocco or Naz Reid. But hard to like him when you got guys like Thaddeus Young coming in cheaper, almost 4K even, playing around 30 type minutes. Not great production the last couple of games, but he's always live for that type of production. We've seen it in years past. However, there is a guy you can pay down for and be a little bit different for the Chicago Bulls. Like I've mentioned numerous times, they need bodies. So let's see, Daniel Gafford, he's going to play around 15, 20 minutes. Has actually been a better points per minute player than Thad Young on the year, so maybe they shake things up, give him a few more run, give him a little bit more minutes, and takes away some of that production from Thad Young. Hopefully he's much higher owned, and it's always nice when they have Gafford all the way at the bottom, so people might not even know he's a real person. Nonetheless, JaMychal Green, like I mentioned, finally making his Nuggets debut, coming over from the Clippers. They eased him in with 11 minutes against the Suns. However, he played nearly 30 against the Timberwolves. I don't know if that was mostly probably in the fourth quarter, I'm assuming, because it was a relatively close game. Pretty much throughout the whole 3 quarters of the beginning of it, the Timberwolves actually took the lead going into the fourth quarter and then got blown out by 20. However, he got it done. If he gets anything close to that type of production at 3,900, he might be a must-have. However, you can't really depend on it. It's a new guy and a new team, playing his 3rd game for that team. 1 game he got eased in. 1 game was kind of a blowout. However, he did play pretty damn well against the Timberwolves. I watched the whole game, unfortunately for me, but JaMychal Green actually looked pretty damn good, so I would consider him. Another guy you may have to force yourself to consider is Juancho Hernan-Gomez. This is a guy they just gave a 3-year contract to a couple weeks ago. He's been playing dreadful. Filmed a basketball movie with Adam Sandler in the off-season. Certainly looks like he was spending time in front of the cameras and spending time with Adam Sandler instead of getting better as a basketball player. However, he did get a 3-year, $15 million deal out of the Timberwolves. So they do have a little bit of motivation to try to play him and get him going. They elevated him into the starting lineup against Denver, his old team. You will see there's not much reason why they would want to do that besides that contract that they gave him. So at min price, $3,500, Juancho Hernan-Gomez is going to have to take a little consideration, maybe a semi-revenge spot against one of his old best friends, Nikola Jokic. And that leads me into center, Nikola Jokic, a guy who I was super heavy on the slate where they took on the Timberwolves the first game. Didn't smash the Timberwolves as much as I expected him to, even though he did have a triple-double. If he had 25, 26 points, he would be smashing them much, much more. 10,500, a bit pricey. However, I have a feeling that a 60-point game is going to come from him. Timberwolves just have nobody who can stop him. Ed Davis gives him a lot of effort, a lot of energy. However, he does find himself in foul trouble, and then Naz Reid has no hope against Nikola Jokic. I'm going to double down. I'm going to say he's going for over 55 against my Minnesota Timberwolves, and I will be super heavy on Nikola Jokic, and I think you should too. However, I don't hate Rudy Gobert against Brooklyn, a younger center in Jarrett Allen, if it's not DeAndre Jordan. Around 8K, he always has that obviously 40-plus upside you'd be looking for, 50-point potential. I wouldn't be surprised if Rudy Gobert is the way to go. However, I am going to probably be super overweight on Nikola Jokic and double down against the Timberwolves, because what I've seen as a Minnesota Timberwolves fan has not been anything positive as far as defensive effort. So you can go Jonas Valanciunas, 6,800 against the LA Lakers, price tag around 7K. Hasn't been paying off that price tag the last 3 games, especially with Ja Morant out. They need somebody to step up, kind of lead the team and produce, and it has not been Jonas Valanciunas. And I don't necessarily like his odds going up against Anthony Davis and Montrezl Harrell and Marc Gasol. Definitely not making him a priority in any means. I'm probably going super cheap at center or Rudy Gobert or Nikola Jokic. However, you can consider Jusuf Nurkic, 6K flat, a super cheap price tag since the bubble. I mean, he's been killing it in the bubble and certainly elevated his stock as far as fantasy basketball goes. However, he has been super underwhelming, not getting many minutes. I don't know if that's because Ennis Cantor has been playing so well or what their rotation has been, but not getting many minutes, and he's underwhelming everybody. So you got an attractive price tag and an attractive matchup going up against the Chicago Bulls. They don't have Lauri Markkanen and a couple other bodies, so certainly it's certainly teasing you at that 6K flat price tag for Jusuf Nurkic. However, you could go Jared Allen at 5,800. Going up against the Utah Jazz figures to be kind of a difficult matchup for him with Rudy Gobert. However, maybe it pushes him and he has a surprisingly higher game than you would think. Montrezl Harrell, 5,300 for the Los Angeles Lakers, getting around 23-24 minutes. However, usually has been over a point per minute player, so worth your consideration at 5,300. As I mentioned with Jusuf Nurkic, Ennis Cantor has been playing surprisingly well this year. When he does get minutes, I mean, look at the upside: 42 off 24 minutes. 31 off 22 minutes. If they give him any extra minutes, he's going to be a smash pivot off of Jusuf Nurkic if people take the bait as far as that 6,000 price tag. Take the $800 discount and directly pivot off his counterpart on his team, Ennis Cantor. Wendell Carter actually looks like a pretty damn good play. Great price tag on that team that is missing bodies. Should have a little bit more run going up against Jusuf and Ennis Cantor. He's a little bit more athletic in my opinion, obviously younger. Going to love that price tag, and his projection has him paying that off significantly, so gotta like that. And talking about price tags, Sergey Baka at 4,500. Hasn't been the greatest basketball player in the world this year. However, we know he always has that potential, and I can't remember the last time we've seen this guy at 4,500. He was playing around 20 minutes for the Raptors last year and was still around 6,000, to put that into context. So gotta like Sergey Baka at 4,500. That's pretty crazy. Jacob Poeltl will get a natural boost if LaMarcus Aldridge is out. Other than that, you can take a shot at Marc Gasol going up in a rematch against his former team. Yep, his former team didn't just play for Toronto. The Memphis Grizzlies actually paid off that price tag, but 4K, you want around 23, 24. Obviously, you want more, but 4K flat, Marc Gasol always going to be in consideration. Interesting to see what they do with DeAndre Jordan if they continue to give him limited minutes. With Kevin Durant out, maybe they just go with the younger guy, Jarrett Allen. Ed Davis is a guy who actually is pretty sneaky. They moved him into the starting lineup because the Timberwolves defensively have nothing to do with nothing to stop or slow down Nikola Jokic. Has been known to pick up fouls relatively fast. However, he does give you effort. I mean, I've seen this guy play, look at 16 minutes and get you 10 rebounds. I mean, that's absurd. So if he can even get you a handful of points, and he does get that starting nod, to try to slow down Nikola Jokic, not like he will. He will give you effort, though, and he will give you rebounds. If he gets any points, that's just the cherry on top. And for nearly minimum price at $3,700, for nearly minimum price at $3,700, Ed Davis could be a sneaky play, with a lot of people probably going Jokic or Gobert. One more center I have to mention before I forget. I skipped over him when I went to Ed Davis. Is Zubac. Always going to get around 18, 19, 20 minutes. In relief of Serge Ibaka, could be a pivot off Serge. However, with Serge Ibaka only $600 more, I obviously am going to prefer Serge over Zubac. However, at $3,900 and still getting minutes and a pretty good fantasy basketball player, certainly worth consideration. I mean, if Ed Davis is worth consideration, Zubac is as well. And looking over it, that'll just about do it to wrap up Tuesday, January 5th's NBA basketball slate. If you found this video helpful in any way, feel free to hit me with a like. If you are new, once again, feel free to subscribe so you know when I put out my next content. Until then, guys, as always, peace out.